For years I believed you had to turn compost constantly if you wanted it to break down fast and reach those powerful, microbe-pumping temperatures gardeners brag about. Every guide insisted, turn weekly, add air, keep it fluffy, and so I did, until my back started complaining and my compost refused to heat evenly no matter how much I flipped it. Then I stumbled onto a method that's over 1,000 years old, used long before garden blogs, modern bins, or tractor-powered aerators existed. Ancient farmers built compost piles that heated naturally, decomposed steadily, and required almost zero turning. After trying it myself, I stopped turning compost altogether, and the results shocked me. This is the no-turn self-heating method that changed everything. Old agricultural texts and traditional farming communities, from parts of Europe to East Asia, describe long, slow compost heaps built in layers. Instead of fluffing the pile every week to add oxygen, these farmers use structure and ingredients to create internal airflow. When I tried layering for the first time, I finally understood. Turning isn't what makes compost successful. Oxygen and balance are, and you can build those in from the start. Here's how the ancient-style method works. Start with a thick air layer base. Instead of beginning with food scraps or manure, traditional piles start with a bulky foundation layer. Think small branches, corn stalks, straw, twigs, dry stems. This creates large pockets of air underneath the pile, letting it breathe from below. Once the oxygen moves upward naturally, microbes ignite. When I shifted to this method, my compost hit 130 degrees Fahrenheit within 3 days, without turning. Alternate green and brown layers, but keep them thick. Most people sprinkle greens and browns together like salad mix. The ancient method does it differently. Build each layer several inches thick. So, a typical stack, well, it looks like this. Start with a base layer of about 6 to 8 inches of twigs or stalks. Then, add a green layer, 4 to 6 inches of fresh grass, manure, or kitchen scraps, and after that, a brown layer, which is another 4 to 6 inches of leaves, straw, or even shredded cardboard. You'll want to repeat those layers until your pile is at least 3 to 4 feet tall. These big layers, they really act like insulation. Once the center heats up, that warmth doesn't escape easily. The pile, it kind of becomes its own self-powered furnace. Now it's time to add what I like to call natural microbe igniters. You know, ancient farmers didn't have store-bought compost starters. They just used what nature provided. So, a shovel of finished compost, a handful of forest soil, a little old manure, maybe some brewed plant teas, or even a bit of pond muck. These ingredients are loaded with the bacteria and fungi that kickstart decomposition. The first time I added forest soil into the middle layer of my pile, the core temp jumped almost overnight. Microbes respond fast when you give them the right army. Build the pile high enough to heat. Here's what most modern gardeners get wrong. A compost pile needs mass to generate heat. So, the 1,000-year-old method actually recommends a minimum size for your compost pile. That's 3 feet wide, 3 feet deep, and somewhere between 3 and 4 feet tall. You know, a small pile just won't heat up, no matter how often you turn it, but if you build a well-layered tall pile, it becomes naturally insulated. That lets the heat build up and, well, stay trapped right inside. Once mine reached 4 feet high, I actually watched steam pour out every time I opened a little inspection hole, turning, totally unnecessary. Seal the top with a thick brown layer. You know, ancient heaps were always capped with straw, leaves, or dried grass to lock in moisture and heat. This lid acts like a natural roof. Modern composters often leave the top exposed, which, well, lets heat escape and dries everything out. With the old method, the top layer keeps everything underneath warm and active. After using this cap, my pile stayed moist, not wet, for over a month without me watering. It's really self-regulating and hands-off, you know. Let nature do the turning for you. Here's the beauty of this method: you don't need to turn the pile because the interior microbes create rising heat columns which draw in fresh air from the bottom and sides. That movement creates a natural convection system. Microbes do the mixing, heat rises, oxygen flows, materials settle, and over time, the pile compresses into rich, dark compost with almost no effort at all. You can turn it if you want to speed things up, but you don't have to. The ancient heat stack works on its own, reliably and consistently. Harvest the compost from the bottom. Instead of tearing the pile apart, ancient farmers simply removed the finished compost from the bottom and let the top settle downward. This layered design naturally produces finished compost at the base first. When I lifted the bottom slats of my bin after 8 weeks, I saw dark, fluffy humus ready to use even though the upper layers were still breaking down. Best of both worlds. So, since switching to this 1,000-year-old technique, I've noticed a few things. My compost heats up faster, it stays hot for a much longer time, and honestly, it requires almost no maintenance at all. The moisture and airflow just sort of balance themselves out, and I end up with more usable compost in less time. And, well, my back no longer hates me for it. Now, turning compost isn't exactly wrong, but it's just not necessary. The ancients figured out a much smarter system long before we started complicating things. If you want hot, fast, rich compost without all those weekly chores, this old-world method is honestly the most efficient approach I've ever used. Gentle herb living.